My son just turned 16. He had a girlfriend. She was almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. Then 3 weeks ago, her parents called us. She's pregnant, slightly showing. The dates line up with their relationship. My wife and I went into full panic mode. We waited a couple days before telling our son. He didn't know. I sat him down in the living room, my wife standing there with her arms crossed. I said, "Son, Emily's pregnant. The timeline fits with when you two were together." He looked at me dead in the eye and said, "It's not mine. I never fucked her." I didn't believe him. I know he's active. He'd asked me for condoms before and I'd given them to him, but he kept insisting they never did it. I pulled him aside later, had a heart-to-heart. He told me he cheated on her. I know he's an absolute shithead, but the way he said it, the way he looked at me, I began to believe him. He said he always raps and he's asked me for restocks. He was adamant. My wife, on the other hand, didn't believe him at all. She kept saying, "He's lying to protect himself. We need to accept responsibility." It was already tense between us. Both families met. My wife started the conversation just accepting that our son is the father. She was already talking about solutions, funding, maybe keeping the baby, maybe adoption. My son spoke up, said again, "It's not my baby, we never had sex." He was genuinely angry, his voice cracking. Then he made a comment that I'm going to rephrase. Apparently they only ever did a certain act that can't result in a baby, and it was unsatisfactory, so he never went any further with her. Absolute shithead moved to say that in front of everyone, and we raged at him over it. Emily's parents were mortified. Emily herself admitted they rarely did that act, but she described one specific event, the when and where. It was believable. I know my son is a complete liar. I know he's a dog, but I still believe him. My wife, though, she was furious with me. She said I'm playing into his nonsense, that I'm part of the boy culture. She said children born into this mess deserve better than a father who won't own up. She cried that night, said I'm not supporting her. I felt like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I wanted to believe my son, but everything pointed to him being the dad. The next few days were hell. My wife barely talked to me. My son holed up in his room, then he asked to talk to me alone. He closed his door, sat on his bed, and wouldn't look at me. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you the truth. I didn't cheat on Emily with another girl. I cheated on her with a boy. I'm gay." I sat there, my mind blank. He told me he's been seeing a guy from his school for months. They've been careful, always use protection. He never did anything with Emily beyond that one act because he wasn't attracted to her. He said he tried, but he couldn't. He wanted to break up with her but didn't know how. I asked him, "Is there any chance the baby could be yours?" He said, "No way, I never had sex with her, not once." I believed him completely. All the pieces fit why he was so adamant, why he asked for condoms but never used them with her. He'd been using them with his boyfriend. I hugged him. I told him I was proud of him for being honest, even if it took this to get there. Then I had to tell my wife. She didn't take it well. She accused me of coddling him, of letting him make up stories to avoid responsibility. She said, "You're just accepting this because you don't want to deal with the real problem." I told her, "He's gay, he has a boyfriend, he never slept with Emily, we need to get a paternity test." She refused at first. She said it would humiliate Emily and her family, but I pushed. I said, "If it's not his, we need to know. If it is, we'll step up." We finally agreed to ask Emily's parents for a test. They were reluctant but agreed. That was when everything changed. The test came back negative. Our son is not the father. Emily's parents were shocked, apologetic. My wife was silent. I didn't scream. I just looked at her and said, "Now do you believe him?" She broke down. She said she was just scared, that she didn't want to believe her son would lie about something so big. But she also admitted she couldn't handle the idea of him being gay. That hurt more than anything. Now I'm sitting here writing this. My son is still in his room. My wife hasn't spoken to me in 2 days. I thought I was overreacting when I first believed him, but I wasn't. The truth came out. And now I have to figure out how to hold my family together. I thought my story was bad, but then I read about this other situation and realized some people have it way worse. At least my son told me the truth eventually. Some people never get that, so I'm 21, living in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate. We're both 22 now, been living together for a little over a year. We split rent and bills evenly, 50-50. We're friendly but not super close. Respect each other's space mostly. It was good, you know. Until about 6 months ago, she started dating this guy. He's 24. At first he was around once or twice a week. That's normal, right? But then it became constant. He sleeps over 5 to 6 nights a week. Sometimes full weeks straight. He's not on the lease, doesn't pay rent, doesn't bring shopping, doesn't help with anything at all, nothing. I never said much because I get it. She's happy. I didn't want to start drama. But what's been bothering me lately is the shower thing. He showers all the time, twice a day minimum, sometimes more. And every single time he uses my stuff, my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I didn't say anything the first few times because I thought maybe she let him borrow something once, but this went on for weeks. I moved all my things into my room and carried them back and forth like I'm at a camp. It was ridiculous. I'd walk to the bathroom with a basket full of products, use them, walk back. I felt like I was in a dorm again. I brought it up to my roommate a while ago. I said, "Hey, your boyfriend keeps using my stuff in the shower. Can you ask him to stop or buy his own?" She just shrugged and said, "He probably didn't realize," and did nothing about it. Last week I finally said something more direct. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute anything, and uses my stuff. I told her I'd feel different if he at least bought his own stuff or chipped in somehow. She got super defensive. She said I was being unreasonable, that he's just comfortable here, that I'm trying to control her relationship. I said, I'm not controlling anything, I just don't want him using my razor, that's gross. She rolled her eyes and walked away. That night I decided to keep my stuff locked in my room. I brought my razor into the bathroom with me, used it and brought it back. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning while I was at work, my roommate texted me. She said, "You need to stop being so petty, he's going to think you hate him." I replied, "I don't hate him, I just want him to stop using my stuff." She didn't respond. He didn't stop. I came home from work one day and found the shower wet. My shampoo was in there. I had left it in my room. She must have taken it. I was furious. I knocked on her door and said, "Did you take my shampoo out of my room?" She said, "He needed to shower. It's not a big deal." I said, "It is a big deal. You went into my room and took my things." She said, "You're being crazy." I didn't scream. I just said, "If he needs to shower, he can go to his own place or buy his own products. I'm done." Things got worse. He started showering even more, 3 times a day sometimes. I noticed he was sweating a lot, even when it wasn't hot. He'd come out of the bathroom looking exhausted, his eyes weirdly bright. I didn't think much of it at first. I just thought he was weird. Then one day I found a needle in the bathroom trash can. Not a sewing needle, a small insulin needle, but neither of them is diabetic. I confronted my roommate. I said, "What is this?" She looked at it, turned pale, and said, "I don't know, maybe he cut himself shaving." I said, "That's not a shaving cut needle, that's something else." She got defensive again, said I was being dramatic, that I was trying to start problems. I told her I was uncomfortable and that if there were drugs involved, I needed to know. She denied everything. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he looked. The sweating, the constant showers, the weird energy, the way he'd disappear into the bathroom for an hour. I started Googling, everything matched. I felt sick. I called my mom. She said, "Get out of there, get a lock for your door, stop sharing anything." I bought a lock for my bedroom door that weekend. My roommate was pissed. She said, "Now he can't even use the bathroom without you thinking he's going to steal from you." I said, "He already used my razor. What else is he doing?" She didn't have an answer. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I came home from work early. I heard the shower running. I went to my room to grab something and the door was open. I always lock it, but it was open. My things were messy. My bag was dumped on the floor. My wallet was out. Nothing was stolen, but everything was touched. I went to the bathroom door and knocked. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you go into my room?" Silence. Then he said, "I needed a towel." I said, "My room is not where towels are." He didn't answer. I waited. He came out in a towel, dripping wet. He looked at me and said, "You need to relax. You're making this weird." I said, "You cannot go into my room ever." He said, "Whatever." I called my landlord the next day. I told him the situation. He said there's not much he can do about a guest, but if the guest is damaging property or creating unsafe conditions, that's different. I said I think there might be drug paraphernalia. He said he'd talk to my roommate. My roommate came to me that night furious. "You called the landlord. Are you serious? You're trying to get me evicted because he uses your shampoo." I said, "No. I called because he went into my room, because I found a needle in the trash, because he won't stop using my things, because he doesn't pay a cent, and because you don't care." She screamed. She said I was a controlling bitch. She said she'd find a new roommate. I said, "Good." That was 3 days ago. I found out yesterday that he's been dealing drugs out of our apartment. My roommate didn't know, or says she didn't know. The police came this morning. They searched his bag. They found enough to charge him. My roommate is in shock. She's crying, apologizing. She said she didn't know that she loved him, that she thought he was just struggling. I told her I'm moving out. I can't live here anymore. The lease is month to month. I found a place. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. She can deal with the rest. I don't feel bad. I really don't. I tried to be nice. I tried to be understanding. I moved my things. I locked my door. I asked nicely. And what did I get? A needle in the trash and an open bedroom door. Sometimes you have to look out for yourself. I told her I'm moving out. I can't live here anymore. The lease is month to month. I found a place. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. She can deal with the rest. I don't feel bad. I really don't. I tried to be nice. I tried to be understanding. I moved my things. I locked my door. I asked nicely. And what did I get? A needle in the trash and an open bedroom door. The police came back 2 days later. They wanted to talk to me. I told them everything. The sweating, the showers, the razor, the locked door, the way he looked at me when he came out of the bathroom. The detective asked if I had ever seen him using anything. I said no, but I found the needle. He asked if I ever felt threatened. I said not until that night when he went through my stuff. They arrested him. My roommate called me crying. She said she had no idea he was dealing. She said she thought the sweating was from anxiety. She said he told her he was just stressed about money. I didn't say much. I just told her I was sorry she got hurt, but I couldn't stay. She asked if we could still be friends after this. I said no. I can't be friends with someone who let a stranger use my razor and then gaslit me about it. I moved out last weekend. I'm in a studio now. It's smaller, cheaper, and quiet. No roommates. No boyfriends showering 3 times a day. No needles. I sleep better. My mom said she was proud of me for standing up for myself. My dad said I should have called the police sooner. Maybe he's right, but I was scared. I didn't want to be the one who ruined her relationship. Turns out it was already ruined. I just happened to be the one who opened the door. I still think about it sometimes. The way he looked at me that day, the way she defended him, I learned something from this: trust your gut. If someone tells you you're being crazy and you're not, you're probably not. You're probably the only sane person in the room. That whole thing made me think back to my own family drama. I mentioned earlier that my son's situation eventually came out and it did. I thought he was lying. I really did. I had that gut feeling too, just the opposite direction. I believed him even though everyone told me I was wrong. And in the end, I was right. But the truth was worse than I expected. So here's the full story. My son just turned 16. He had a girlfriend who was almost 17. They broke up about a month before we found out she was pregnant. We got a call from her parents. She was showing. Dates lined up with when they were together. My wife and I panicked. We waited a couple days before telling our son. He had no idea. He said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." I didn't believe him at first. I knew he was active. I knew he asked me for condoms, but he kept saying they never did it. He said he cheated on her. I had a heart-to-heart with him. He's a shithead, I know, but I started to believe him. He said he always wrapped up and he asked for restocks regularly. My wife didn't believe him at all. Both families met. My wife started talking about funding, solutions, accepting responsibility. My son spoke up again. He said it's not his baby because they never had sex. He was angry. Then he made a comment I have to rephrase. Apparently they only did a certain act that can't cause pregnancy and it was unsatisfactory, so he never went further. I raged at him for that. He's a shithead for sure, but his ex admitted they rarely did it. She described the event, when and where. It sounded believable. I still believed my son. My wife was furious with me. She said I was part of some boy culture, that I was enabling him. She said children born into such denial suffer. She wanted us to take responsibility as grandparents, buy baby stuff, set up a college fund. Our son kept insisting. He said he would take a paternity test the second the baby was born. Everyone thought he was just in denial. Weeks passed. The tension was unbearable. My wife barely talked to me. Our son stayed in his room. I felt like I was losing my family. Then came the update. This happened about a month after the family meeting. Our son came to us one evening. He looked terrified. He said, "Mom, Dad, I have to tell you something. I'm gay." I didn't say anything at first. My wife started crying. She said, "Is that why you never did it with her?" He nodded. He said he had been seeing a boy from school for months. He said the girlfriend was just a cover. He told her the truth when they broke up. She was angry, but she agreed to keep it secret. Then she got pregnant from someone else. She didn't know who. She was scared. She thought if she blamed him, her parents wouldn't freak out as much. My wife broke down. She apologized to him. She apologized to me. She said she was so wrong. I just held her. I felt relieved but also sick for all the accusations. We got a paternity test done anyway. It wasn't his. The ex-girlfriend finally admitted everything to her parents. She named the real guy, some older dude she met at a party. Her parents were devastated. They apologized to us. We told them it was okay. We just wanted everyone to heal. My son is still gay. We love him. We support him. He introduced us to his boyfriend a few weeks later. Nice kid, respectful, they're careful. At least I know he's using protection. I think about how close I came to not believing him. How close I came to forcing him to be a father for a child that wasn't his, all because my wife couldn't see past her assumptions. I learned that sometimes the shithead teenager is telling the truth. And sometimes you have to trust your gut even when everyone else thinks you're wrong. That's where I am now. My son is happy. My marriage is recovering. We're going to family counseling. And I'm never going to assume anything about anyone ever again. I remember the day the paternity test results came in. We were all sitting in the living room. My wife was pacing. My son was staring at the floor. The envelope sat on the coffee table like a bomb. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. I opened it. Read it twice, not the father. My wife collapsed onto the couch. She started sobbing, not relief, guilt. She looked at our son and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I made you feel like a liar." He just nodded. He didn't say I told you so. He just said, "It's okay, Mom. I know you were scared." But it wasn't okay for a while. We had to call the ex-girlfriend's parents. I made the call. Her dad answered. I told him the test results. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We need to talk to our daughter." An hour later, he called back. He said she broke down and told them everything. The real father was a guy she met at a party, 19 years old. She didn't even know his last name. She panicked when she found out she was pregnant. She thought blaming our son was the easiest way out. She never thought it would go this far. Her mom got on the phone. She was crying. She said they were going to get her counseling. She apologized over and over. I told her it was fine. It wasn't fine. But what was I supposed to say? My son was free. That was all that mattered. For the next few weeks, my wife and I went through the motions. We talked about the pregnancy thing, but we also talked about the other thing. The gay thing. I'll be honest, I didn't know how to handle it at first. I grew up in a house where that wasn't discussed. But my son was still my son. He was still the same kid who used to beg me to play catch, who cried when his goldfish died, who asked me for condoms, and then told me he never used them with her because he didn't want to. I realized how much courage it must have taken for him to tell us. He could have just let us believe he was the father. He could have let us force him into a lie for the rest of his life. But he didn't. One night after dinner, he asked if he could bring his boyfriend over. I said yes. My wife said yes. She was trying really hard. We cleaned the house. We ordered pizza. I was nervous. "What do you say to your son's boyfriend?" The doorbell rang. He was a nice kid, 17, same grade. He played soccer. He was polite. He called me sir. He shook my hand. We ate pizza and watched a movie. My wife cried in the kitchen while doing dishes. I pretended not to notice. After he left, my son came to my room. He said, "Dad, thanks for being cool about it." I said, "You're my son, I don't care who you love, I care that you're happy." He hugged me, he hasn't hugged me in years, I hugged him back, I didn't let go for a long time. The ex-girlfriend's parents called again a few weeks later, they said they found the real father. He denied it at first, but a paternity test proved it. He was a piece of work, dropped out of school, had a record, they were going to pursue child support. She was keeping the baby. They asked if we wanted to stay in touch. I said no, not out of anger, just out of need to move on. My wife started going to therapy. Individual first, then couples. Our therapist asked if we wanted to bring our son in. We did, we talked about the whole mess. My wife admitted she had been so scared of our son becoming a teenage dad that she couldn't see the truth. She said she felt like a failure as a mother. Our son told her she wasn't. He said he should have told us he was gay sooner. But he was scared too. We all were. I think about how close we came to ruining everything. If I hadn't believed him, if I had just gone along with my wife's plan, we would have forced him into a lie that could have destroyed him. He would have resented us forever. He might have run away. He might have done something stupid. Instead, we got a chance to know the real him. We still have tough days. My wife sometimes gets quiet when she sees two guys holding hands. It's not hate, it's just new. She's working on it. I'm working on it. We're reading books. We're talking to other parents. My son's boyfriend comes over every other weekend now. They study together, they laugh, they argue about video games, normal stuff. Last week, my son came home from school and said someone called him a slur in the hallway. I wanted to drive to that kid's house and scream at his parents, but my son said, "It's okay, Dad, I told the principal, he got detention, I don't need you to fight my battles." I felt proud and helpless at the same time. I guess the moral is don't assume. Don't assume your kid is lying. Don't assume your wife is right. Don't assume you know what's going on behind closed doors. Sometimes the truth is weird and uncomfortable and not what you expected. But it's still the truth and you have to face it. I still think about that roommate story sometimes. How she trusted her gut even when everyone told her she was crazy. How she moved her shampoo bottle and locked her door and called the cops. She saved herself. I saved my son in a different way. I listened. I believed. I didn't let fear make the decision. We're going to be okay. My son is seeing a therapist too. He says it helps. His boyfriend is a good kid. They're careful. I know because I saw condoms in his backpack. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. Some things you don't need to talk about. I'll never forget that feeling of walking into my own bathroom and seeing my shampoo bottle in the shower half empty with the cap off. I knew I hadn't used it that morning. I knew I'd moved it into my bedroom the night before. I knew exactly who had taken it back out. I'm 21, female, live in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate Tudu. We've been living together for a little over a year. We weren't best friends, but we were friendly. We split rent and bills evenly. We respected each other's space. It was fine, until about 6 months ago when she started dating this guy. He's 2'4". At first he was around once or twice a week. Normal. Then it turned into 5 or 6 nights a week, sometimes full weeks in a row. He's not on the lease, he doesn't pay rent, he doesn't bring groceries, he doesn't help with anything, nothing. I never said much because I didn't want to start drama. I get it, new relationship, honeymoon phase, whatever. But this guy was basically living with us for free. And then there was the shower thing. He showers all the time. Twice a day minimum, sometimes 3 times. And every single time he uses my stuff, my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I noticed when my razor blades got dull in 2 weeks instead of 2 months. I noticed when my shampoo bottle went from full to empty in a week. I noticed when I picked up my deodorant and it smelled like someone else's armpit. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe my roommate let him borrow something once. But it kept happening, so I moved all my toiletries into my bedroom. I carried them back and forth like I was at a summer camp. It was annoying, but it worked, for a while. Then one morning I overslept. I had an 8 a.m. class. I grabbed my shampoo bottle from my room, but I forgot my conditioner. I went to the bathroom, opened the cabinet, and saw my conditioner sitting right there. Also my razor, also my face wash. I knew I hadn't left them out. My roommate had gone into my room and taken them, or he had. I didn't know which was worse. I brought it up to her that evening. I said, "Hey, I'm uncomfortable with your boyfriend using my stuff in the shower. Can he either buy his own or stop?" She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. Didn't realize after 6 months she didn't do anything about it. A week later I tried again, more direct this time. I told her I didn't want him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute, and uses my stuff. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own products or chipped in for the water bill. She got defensive. She said I was being controlling. She said he had a right to be comfortable in his girlfriend's home. I said, "It's my home too." That was when everything changed. After that conversation, things got weird. The boyfriend started giving me dirty looks. He'd walk past me in the hallway without saying anything. He'd leave his wet towel on the bathroom floor. He'd use the last of the toilet paper and not replace it. Small stuff, annoying stuff, but I didn't want to be the one who caused a fight, so I let it slide. Then I started noticing other things. He'd get phone calls at weird hours and step outside. He'd come back with cash in his hand. He'd smell different, not like cologne, but like something chemical. I didn't think much of it. People have different jobs. I'm not nosy. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. to go to the bathroom. The hallway light was on. The bathroom door was open. The boyfriend was standing at the sink shirtless with a spoon and a lighter. I froze. He saw me in the mirror. He turned around and said, "Mind your own business." I went back to my room and locked the door. I called my mom the next day. She told me to get out. I said I couldn't, I'm on the lease. She said, then go to the landlord. I did. I told my landlord everything. The constant showers, the stolen stuff, the spoon, the lighter, the weird hours. My landlord said, I'll look into it. She never did. I tried talking to my roommate again. I said, I think your boyfriend might be using drugs in our apartment. She laughed. She said I was being dramatic. She said he was just stressed from work. She said I needed to stop obsessing over him. I felt crazy. I thought I was overreacting, but I was. 2 weeks later, I came home early from work. Around 3 p.m., our apartment door was unlocked. That was normal. My roommate worked from home sometimes. But when I walked in, the boyfriend was on the couch, not my roommate. And there was a scale on the coffee table and little plastic baggies and a pile of white powder on a plate. He looked at me. I looked at him. He said, you didn't see anything. I didn't scream. I said, I need to get something from my room. I walked past him, grabbed my phone, and locked myself in my room. I called the police, not 911, the non-emergency line. I told them I suspected drug dealing in my apartment. They said they'd send someone. 20 minutes later, 2 officers knocked on the door. I let them in. The boyfriend was already gone. The scale and baggies were still there. The powder was still on the plate. The officers tested it. It was meth. They asked me if I knew where he went. I said no. They asked about my roommate. I said she was at work. They took the stuff, took my statement, and left. I texted my roommate. There were drugs on the coffee table. Your boyfriend is dealing meth. The police came. I need you to come home. She didn't reply for 2 hours. Then she showed up. She was furious. She said I had no right to call the cops. She said I was trying to ruin her relationship. She said I was jealous. I said, jealous of what? Being with a drug dealer? She said, he's not a drug dealer. He was holding it for a friend. I said, the police tested it. It's meth. He ran out the back door. He's not coming back. She started crying. She said he promised her he was clean. She said he told her he was just stressed. She said she loved him. I felt bad for her, but I also felt angry. She had backed him up every time I complained. She had made me feel like I was the problem. The next week was hell. The boyfriend never came back. My roommate moped around the apartment. She blamed me for everything. She said I had no proof. I said, the police have the plate and the baggies. That's proof, she said. They won't find him. She was right. He disappeared. 2 weeks after that, our lease was up. I moved out. My roommate moved back in with her parents. We don't talk anymore. I heard through a mutual friend that she got a restraining order against the boyfriend after he showed up at her parents' house, demanding money. She finally saw it, but it was too late. I still think about that morning when I forgot my conditioner. How such a small thing led to me discovering something so dangerous. I learned to trust my gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And I learned that some people will defend the person who's hurting them because they're scared to be alone. That roommate story is one of the reasons I'm so careful now. I don't let people into my space without boundaries. I don't ignore red flags. And I don't let anyone make me feel crazy for protecting myself. Looking back, I wish I had called the cops sooner. I wish I had talked to the landlord earlier. I wish I had listened to that voice in my head that said, this is not normal. But I was young. I didn't want to cause drama. I didn't want to be the difficult roommate. Now I know better to be difficult than to be dead. After that whole thing, I moved into a studio apartment by myself. It's small, just one room, but there's no one else here. No boyfriend using my razor. No scale on the coffee table. No police knocking at my door, just me. Peace doesn't have a price tag. I never thought I'd be sitting here typing this out, but here we are. My son just turned 16. He's a good kid mostly. A little wild maybe, but what 16-year-old is. Had a girlfriend, she was 16, almost 17. They broke up about a month ago. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About 3 weeks ago, we got a phone call, her parents. They said she was pregnant, slightly showing. The dates lined up with my son's relationship. My wife and I went into full panic mode. We didn't know what to do. We waited a couple of days before telling our son. He didn't know. When we told him, he looked at us, dead serious, and said, it's not mine. I never fucked her. I didn't believe him at first. I know he's active. I know he's been with girls. He's asked me for protection before, but he kept insisting. He said they never did it. He said he cheated on her, and that's when he told me something I never expected. I had a heart-to-heart with him. He's an absolute shithead, I'll admit it, but I began to believe him. He said he always raps. He asked for restocks from me like I'm his personal condom supplier. I know he's a liar about a lot of things, but this felt different. My wife, on the other hand, didn't believe him at all. We set up a meeting with both families. My wife walked in already accepting that our son was the father. She started talking about solutions, funding, how we'd handle the baby. I sat there quiet. My son spoke up again. He said, it's not my baby, we never had sex. He was genuinely angry. He looked at his ex-girlfriend and said, you know that's the truth. Then he made a comment that I have to rephrase because it's not something I want to repeat exactly. But basically he said they only ever did a certain act, one that can't result in a baby. And he said it was so unsatisfactory that he never went any further with her. He's an absolute shithead for saying that in front of everyone, and we raged at him for it. But I still believed him. His ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did it. She described the event they did have, the when and where. It sounded believable. I know my son is a complete liar. I know he's a dog, but I still believed him. My wife, though, she was furious with me. She said I was playing into his nonsense. She said I was part of the boy culture, whatever that means. She said children born out of wedlock need support and we had to take responsibility. I told her if it's not his, we shouldn't be paying for another man's mistake. She didn't like that. The next few weeks were hell. My wife and I barely talked. She started going through my son's phone when he wasn't home. She found texts, not to girls, to a guy named Jake. My son had been texting Jake for months, lovey-dovey stuff, saying he wanted to be with him, saying he was done pretending with his ex-girlfriend. My wife showed me the text. I didn't know what to say. I asked my son about it. He broke down. He told me he was gay. He had been with Jake for over a year. The ex-girlfriend, she was a cover. He said he never actually slept with her. He said they did that other act once and that was it. He said the pregnancy wasn't possible because he had never been with a girl that way. I felt sick, not because he's gay, I don't care about that, but because my wife had been so convinced he was the father and now what? I called her into the room, I showed her the text, she didn't say anything at first, then she said, he's lying, he's just trying to get out of responsibility. I said, he's gay, Sarah, he's been with a boy for a year, he didn't sleep with her. She started crying. She said, then who's the father? I said, I don't know, but it's not my son. We had another meeting with the ex-girlfriend's family. This time my son wasn't there. I told them what we found. They were shocked. The ex-girlfriend started crying. She admitted she had been with someone else while they were together. She didn't know if it was his or my son's. She said she thought my son would just accept it because he was a nice guy. My wife completely broke down. She had been so ready to take on a grandchild. She had been planning for it, buying baby clothes, looking up schools. She never even considered my son might not be the father. She never considered he might be gay. We don't talk about it much now. My son is still with Jake. He's happier than I've ever seen him. His ex-girlfriend had an abortion as far as I know. My wife still hasn't fully accepted that my son is gay. She keeps saying it's a phase. I told her, it's not a phase. He's your son. Love him anyway. She's trying. It's hard, but I can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend my son is something he's not. And I can't pretend like I should have sided with my wife over this. I didn't. I believed my son and I was right. Sometimes being the bad guy in your partner's eyes is the only way to be a good parent. I'll write the continuation now. A few months passed, my son kept seeing Jake, they were happy, my wife kept avoiding the subject. Every time I brought up Jake's name, she changed the topic. She'd ask about school, about grades, about chores, anything to not talk about it. One evening she came home late, she'd been at her sister's house. She sat down at the kitchen table, stared at the wall for a long time and then said, I called his ex-girlfriend's mom. I froze. Why? I wanted to know if they did a paternity test, she said. I still didn't believe him. I felt my stomach drop. Sarah, we already know he's gay. He was with Jake the whole time. She shook her head. But what if he's lying about being gay? What if he's just saying that to avoid responsibility? I didn't scream. I just put my coffee cup down and looked at her. You called the ex's mom. What did she say? My wife started crying. She said the baby wasn't his. They did a test when the baby was born. It wasn't my son's. It was some other boy's. The girl admitted it. I let out a long breath. So now do you believe him? She sat there, shoulders shaking. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I don't know how to be the mother of a gay son. I don't know how to explain this to my family. I reached over and took her hand. You don't explain it, you just love him, that's all you have to do. She didn't say anything, but she didn't pull her hand away. That night, I went to my son's room. He was on his phone, texting Jake. I told him what his mother had said. He looked up. She still doesn't believe me. She's coming around, I said. It's hard for her. She had a whole picture of your future in her head, grandkids, a daughter-in-law, a white picket fence. That's not my future, he said. I want to be with Jake. We're going to move out when I turn 18, get an apartment, live our lives. I nodded. I know and I support that. He gave me a small smile. Thanks, Dad. I sat on his bed. You know your mother, she's not a bad person. She just grew up in a different world. She's going to need time. How much time? He asked. I don't know, but I'll be here with you, both of you. He put his head on my shoulder. It was the first time in years he'd done that. I held him for a minute, then I got up and left. A week later, my wife sat down with my son. I was in the next room pretending to watch TV. I heard her say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I should have believed you. I heard him say, it's okay, Mom, I know you were scared. They cried together. I sat there listening, feeling something I hadn't felt in months, relief. The next day, my son brought Jake over for dinner. My wife made spaghetti. She asked him about school, his family, his hobbies. She didn't ask about sex or religion or politics. She just asked normal things. After dinner, she hugged Jake. Brief, awkward, but real. We're not a perfect family now. We still have moments. My wife still flinches when I say Jake's boyfriend. But she's trying. That's more than I asked for. My son is doing better in school now. He's not sneaking around. He's not lying. He comes home on time. He tells us about his day. I think sometimes about the meeting with the ex-girlfriend's family, how my wife was so certain, how she had already bought baby clothes, how she had already planned a nursery. I think about my son sitting there insisting the baby wasn't his. How nobody believed him except me. I'm glad I trusted him. I don't know if I'm a good father, but I know I tried to listen. I know I didn't let my wife's fears override what my son was telling me. That's all I could do. Now when I see my son with Jake, I see the same look I had when I was his age. Stupid young love, the kind that doesn't care about consequences. Only now he doesn't have to hide it, and that's enough. That story taught me something about trust. Sometimes you have to take a side, even if it means losing your partner's approval for a while. Being a parent isn't about being right all the time. It's about being willing to be wrong. I'm glad I took my son's side. I'm glad I didn't let my wife browbeat me into guilt. I'm glad I listened. If you ever find yourself in a situation like that, I hope you listen too, and I hope you don't apologize for it. The next story I came across hit even closer to home, not because I knew the people, but because it reminded me of how quickly small annoyances can turn into huge disasters when you don't speak up. And then when you do speak up, how people gaslight you into thinking you're the crazy one. I'm a 21-year-old woman and I live in a two-bedroom flat with a roommate I'll call Megan. We moved in together a little over a year ago. Rent was split evenly, bills were split evenly. We weren't best friends, but we were friendly. We respected each other's space. It was fine until she started dating this guy named Derek. He's 24. They got together about 6 months ago. At first, he was around once or twice a week. I didn't mind. I know how it is when you're in a new relationship. You want to be together all the time, I get it. But within a couple months, he was sleeping over 5 to 6 nights a week. Sometimes he wouldn't leave for a full week straight. He had a key to the apartment. He wasn't on the lease, he didn't pay a single cent toward rent or utilities. He didn't buy groceries, he didn't even buy toilet paper, nothing. I told myself it was fine, it's her boyfriend, I didn't want to start drama. But then the shower thing started. Derek showers constantly, twice a day minimum, sometimes 3 times, and every single time he uses my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. I noticed because I'd come back from work and my shampoo bottle would be in the shower when I'd left it on the shelf in my room. My deodorant would have wet patches on it. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe Megan let him borrow something once, but it kept happening every day. I started moving all my toiletries into my bedroom. I had to carry them back and forth to the bathroom like I was at a summer camp. I had to carry them in a little caddy every time I wanted to shower. I brought it up to Megan a few weeks ago. I said, "Hey, Derek keeps using my stuff. Can you ask him to stop?" She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. She didn't do anything about it, so I brought it up again last week, more direct this time. I said I'm not comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute anything and uses my stuff. I'd feel different if he at least bought his own things or chipped in for the water bill or something. She got super defensive. She said, "You're being controlling, he's my boyfriend, he's allowed to be here, you said you were fine with it." I said I was fine with a few nights a week, not 6 nights, not him living here full time. She said he's going through a rough time, he lost his job, he's staying here until he gets back on his feet. I said, "That's not what you told me, you told me he was working full time, you told me he had his own place." She didn't have an answer for that, she just said, "You're being unreasonable." I didn't scream, I just said, "I need him to stop using my stuff, and I need him to not be here every single night, we need to set some boundaries." She stormed into her room and slammed the door. I thought I was overreacting, maybe I was being too strict, maybe I was being a bad roommate, but then things got worse. The next morning, I went into the bathroom to get ready. My razor was not in my caddy. I had left it in the shower caddy the night before after I used it. It was gone. I searched the bathroom, nothing. I asked Megan if she had seen it. She said no. I texted Derek. I said, "Hey, did you use my razor? I can't find it." He texted back, "No, I didn't." But I knew he did. I could tell because I had left it in the shower and it was the only thing missing. And then I started thinking about how he used my deodorant, my shampoo, my conditioner, and now my razor. My razor that I use on my legs and under my arms. The same razor he was using on his face, his armpits, his whatever. I felt sick. I bought a new razor and kept it locked in my room, but the tension in the apartment got so bad. Megan wouldn't talk to me. She'd walk past me like I wasn't there. Derek would be in the living room at 2 a.m. watching TV on full volume. I'd ask him to turn it down and he'd glare at me and turn it up even louder. I talked to a friend about it. She said, "That's weird. How often does he shower?" I said, "Twice a day, minimum." She said, "That's a lot. Is he a clean freak or something?" I shrugged. "I don't know, he lost his job, maybe he's just bored." But she pointed something out. She said people who shower that much, especially if they're using other people's stuff, it could be a sign of drug use. I read about it. Meth users shower constantly. My heart dropped. I didn't want to believe it, but then I started noticing other things. Derek was always fidgety. He couldn't sit still. He would disappear into the bathroom for 15 minutes, come out with his eyes all wide and red. He had open sores on his arms that he said were from a stress rash. I started locking my bedroom door at night. 2 weeks ago, I came home early from work. I walked into the apartment and smelled something strange, like a strong chemical smell. It was coming from the bathroom. The door was locked. I knocked, no answer. I unlocked it with a bobby pin. I'm not proud of that, and opened the door. Derek was sitting on the closed toilet lid with a small baggie in his hand. There was a spoon and a lighter on the sink. He looked up at me with wide eyes. He said, "It's not what it looks like." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Just some stuff for my anxiety." I said, "Meth." He didn't answer. He just shoved everything into his backpack and pushed past me out of the room. I stood there shaking. I called Megan. She didn't answer. I texted her, "I know, Derek is using, I saw him." She texted back, "It's none of your business, mind your own fucking life." I said, "He's living in our apartment for free, using my stuff, shooting up in my bathroom, it is my business." She didn't reply. I went to the landlord the next day. I explained the situation. The landlord said Derek couldn't be on the property, he wasn't on the lease, and if Megan didn't get him out, she'd be evicted too. I served Megan a written notice. Said Derek had to leave the apartment within 7 days. She lost her mind. She screamed at me, told me I was ruining her life, that Derek was going to get clean and she was going to help him, that I was a selfish bitch. I said, I'm not ruining your life, you are and he is. She didn't talk to me for a week after that. But she must have talked to Derek because he suddenly stopped coming over. I don't know where he went, I don't care. Megan moved out at the end of the month. She found a new apartment across town. I helped her pack even though we were barely speaking. I felt bad for her. She was in love with a guy who was using her for a place to stay and a shower and free toiletries. She texted me last week. She said Derek was in rehab. She said she was going to visit him when he got out. She said she thought he could change. I didn't say anything. I just said, I hope you're okay. She didn't reply. I'm living alone now. I can leave my shampoo in the bathroom. I don't have to lock my door. I don't have to worry about someone using my razor or shooting up in my shower. I learned that you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Megan chose him over me. That's her choice. But I chose my own safety and my own sanity. I don't regret it. And I hope Derek gets clean, I really do. But I also hope Megan realizes she deserves better than a guy who steals her roommate's deodorant and uses her bathroom as a drug den. I hope she finds someone who doesn't treat her like a free motel. That story taught me something else about boundaries. Sometimes being the bad guy is the only way to protect yourself. And sometimes the people you thought were your friends aren't really your friends at all. Now I live alone and I'm happier than I've been in months. It's quiet. My stuff is where I left it, and I don't have to wonder if someone else is using my razor. It's a good feeling. Then there was this post from a dad who thought he was doing the right thing by believing his son. I read it and it hit me hard because it's about family loyalty and what happens when you trust your kid even when everyone else thinks they're lying. The original post was from August of last year. OOP was a father. His son, 16 years old, had just broken up with his girlfriend, also 16. 3 weeks after the breakup, her parents told them she was pregnant, slightly showing. The dates matched up with when they were together. OOP and his wife panicked, as you do. They waited a couple days to tell the son. The kid looked them straight in the eye and said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." Now, OOP knew his son was sexually active. The kid had asked him for condoms before. But he kept insisting they never did it. Eventually, in a heart-to-heart, the son admitted he cheated on her. And then he dropped the bomb. He told his dad he had a boyfriend. He'd been seeing a guy for months. That's why he never went all the way with the ex-girlfriend. They'd only done a certain act that couldn't result in a baby, and he said it was so unsatisfying he never bothered to actually have sex with her. OOP was conflicted. He knew his son could be a shithead, but he also believed him. The son even offered to take a paternity test as soon as the baby was born. The wife, though, she didn't buy it, not for a second. She thought the son was lying to get out of responsibility. She accused OOP of enabling him of being part of boy culture. They had screaming fights. She said he was choosing his son over their marriage. Both families met. The wife started talking about funding and solutions, already accepting that the son was the father. The son spoke up again, furious, saying he never touched her. His ex-girlfriend admitted they didn't do it often, but she described a specific event. It sounded believable, but the son stuck to his story. Then came the update. OOP's son took a paternity test as soon as it was legally possible. It came back negative. He was not the father. The wife was devastated, but not because she was wrong. She was devastated that her son was gay. She started crying, saying he was going to hell, that she didn't raise him to be like that. She blamed OOP for allowing the son to act out. OOP said he was just glad his son was honest. He told his wife that their son was still their son. She didn't speak to him for a week. She moved into the guest room. The final update came a few months later. The ex-girlfriend's real baby daddy came forward. Turns out she had been seeing someone else on the side, an older guy. She was trying to pin it on OOP's son because he was a safe option. OOP's son had to deal with that betrayal, plus his mom's rejection. OOP said he and his wife were in couples counseling. She was slowly coming around, but she still refused to talk about their son's boyfriend. The son was living with his boyfriend's family temporarily because of the tension at home. I read that story and I thought about how hard it is to choose who to believe. The dad trusted his son and he was right. But his wife couldn't get past her own beliefs. It tore their family apart, at least for a while. And the son, he was just a kid who got caught in a web of lies from his ex and his mom. It made me grateful that my own family drama was just about a roommate's boyfriend using my razor. Some people have to break way more than a lease to find peace.